All right, thank you so much. I'd like to call to order the Tuesday, June 20th school committee meeting. May I have an approval of the agenda, please?
So moved.
Second. Before we take a unanimous vote on it, I would like to add, if we could, under committee discussion and votes to be taken, a vote on an additional gift from the Tuppence E. Harris Foundation to the Nantucket Community School. If we could add that as an extra agenda item, I actually have some support materials here. Could take one, pass it down for me, that would be great. Does anybody have an issue with adding this to the agenda?
No.
Okay, so I have a motion to approve and a second. Is everyone in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you so much. Are there comments from the public this evening? Hi, Mr. Martin.
Here?
Yeah, I think that's fine. Thank you.
Okay.
You can stand.
Thank you for having this time for public comment again. I'd like to address once again the door issue and other handicapped issues, amongst other things, before your committee. Before I do that, I'd like to make a public apology to my children and all of Nantucket's children for my recent behavior. As the superintendent last school committee meeting pointed out, my behavior has not been what it should have been, and I apologize. My behavior should have been much louder, and it should have been much more pointed. I should have filed complaints with the Attorney General and the Justice Department earlier, and in that way, I failed everyone for that. All of my fellow American citizens, all of my Massachusetts fellow citizens, and all of my Nantucket fellow citizens. I'm sorry. I should have been louder earlier. These are civil rights that we're talking about. It's the Americans with Disabilities Act, Civil Rights Act. These are important laws. They need to be followed, and we need to pay attention to what their requirements are. We can't guess. We need to know what we're talking about. A little background on me. Everybody seems to be afraid of me. I'll tell you a little about me. I moved to Washington, D.C. suburbs in 1968. And in 1968, it was a very turbulent time in Washington. There were a lot of protests, there were riots, and there were marches. One particular march in Washington earlier had been led by a guy named Martin. His name was Martin Luther King. And he scared a lot of people by speaking about civil rights. That's what I'm here talking about right now, is the civil rights of the handicapped and disabled people of our country, of our state, and of our town. Once again, I will remind the board or the committee that this building right now is not up to ADA standards. This meeting, once again, for the second time in a row, is being held in a building that is not up to ADA standards. And in my opinion, that is wrong. So, that guy Martin Luther King, had a dream. He wanted civil rights for everyone, equal rights for everyone, as he should have. What I'd like to do, I have a dream also. I'd like to see the handicapped accessible doors in the school system fixed. I'd like to see them maintained, and I'd like to have them stay functional, as they should, as is required, not only by federal law, but by state constitutional guarantees. Today, before this meeting, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't speaking badly of people who might have actually done their jobs for a change. But I went around to the Nantucket Elementary School at 242, I started there, and 0 out of 2 handicapped accessible doors functioned during the practice. That's unacceptable. This is now 8+ weeks after Dr. Cohen was informed that his doors didn't work. So the school system has known about door issues for over 8 weeks now. When I got cancer 2 years ago, it took them less than 8 weeks to cure stage 4 cancer. Why does it take longer than that to fix the doors to our schools?
Mr. Martin,
All of the
I'm just going to
handicap-
remind you that each person's allowed a couple of minutes for comment, and we're going into close to 4
Cyrus Pierce
or
School,
5.
4 out of 4 doors work? Kudos. Finally, Cyrus Pierce is functional. The Nantucket High School, 0 out of 4 doors work. Again, this building where we're holding this meeting, 0 out of 4 doors work. Finally, the superintendent's office door was unlocked for me as I reached it and opened it. I talked to Steve Butler. I outlined what was going on there, and Steve Butler told me point blank, they can't do that. If I have to repeatedly go back to him, I will. So that's 4 out of 11 access points to these schools or superintendent's office that I was able to gain access through handicapped entrances. The Nantucket Elementary School, I believe, is still, the playground is still inaccessible, which is against the ADA. Is the Nantucket Intermediate School's playground going to be handicapped accessible as is required by the ADA? Is there even going to be a playground, or are we still building a school without a playground? In which case, that'll bother me. At least one Nantucket High School parking spot is not up to ADA codes, and I believe all 3 of them in front are not up to ADA codes. One is illegal because it does not have laddering on either side of it. The spot behind the Nantucket High School is for a teacher, and rightly so, but should be designated strictly for that teacher, not as a handicapped spot, because if I come in earlier than that person and park in that spot, that's not good for society. The 5 spots that the...
I'm going to ask you one more time and ask you to please wrap your comments up. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I would have assumed that you would want to try and fix this problem.
I think that we have made several attempts, and this is not a back and forth discussion. This is public comment. You've had over 7 minutes to make your comments. I'm asking you to wrap them up. Filing an email with us with the list of this complaints or this statement is more than appreciated. I think you've had ample time to make your point. Thank you.
I can't do this myself. I want to step back and let the government like that. And that's sad, because I've tried everything that I could to avoid that. That's not good for Nantucket. It's not good for our children to waste their money on legal fees instead of just fixing a simple problem for more than
Thank you. I'd like to just go on record to say that I've been speaking with Mike and Diane about these issues, and I have every confidence that they're being addressed. I did ask to have an update this evening on where we're at with that. I expect it will be under the superintendent's report. So thank you. Thank you for your comments. Okay, moving on to presentations and discussions of issues of interest to the committee. I'd like to invite Chris Morey up to give us the annual athletics report. Oh, there you are. Sorry, I was looking on the wrong side. Welcome.
Not going to be Natalie again.
Oh, I didn't know that was on.
Oh, yeah.
Put that in my report.
Hi, Chris.
Hi. How are you? Good evening.
Good evening.
Nice to be here, and nice to be talking about a topic and a subject that I think has been a positive, not only this year, but for a few years. I put in your packet some different information, basically laying out participation for the past year and what each one of our teams has done. It's in 2 forms in here. One's a narrative form and one is an outline form that gets into a little bit more detail about each team. I'm just going to run through the narrative form real quick, and then I have some points of interest that I want to just put on the table, and then we can ask for questions in any discussion. Basically, participation has continued to grow, which is great to see. This past year, we had a total between the middle school and the high school of 540 kids that participated in at least one sport during the course of the school year. So that would be through grades 6 through 12. Those are great participation numbers, and those are actually a little bit above what is the state average. In that narrative, there's a breakdown of just how those numbers work out between each sports season and between each school. You can look at those and go through those on your own. As far as game schedules and games played, the different levels of play here with MPS Athletics, we had a total of 543 contests that took place either here on Nantucket or off island, which is obviously that's a lot of different teams traveling back and forth, either making their way to the island and over to the mainland. And again, in that narrative, there's a breakdown there where you can see just exactly how that worked out from a standpoint of each sports season and each different level. There's a page on the athletic success where we give you basically the win-loss record right straight across the board for all of our varsity teams and a winning percentage, and also talk about the teams that made tournament play and that were league champions. In that league championship category, there is an error that should be 6 out of 15, not 5 out of 15. Ice hockey was left off that list, so that should be included and added to that list. Academic success, and obviously academics is something that we always bring to the forefront with all of our student athletes, and we have pushed each year to and seen better and better GPAs across the board from all of our sports teams. This year we handed out a total of 215 academic awards to student athletes in the form of either certificates for student athletes that made honor roll during their season of play, or principals list plaques, which were to any of our student athletes that achieved high honor status during their season of play. Again, in that narrative, there's a breakdown where you can see it season by season, which was the top team, and we do award each season of play a plaque to the team that has the highest overall GPA. A few points of interest that I just want to touch on. Obviously, we were thrilled this fall to travel over to Martha's Vineyard and after 14 years of drought, come back with the Island Cup. That was exciting not only for our athletic department and our school, but for the community as well. The way things look right now, hopefully that cup is going to stay here. It looks like the power in the football program has switched. The Island Cup game will be here on the island this fall. Right now that's scheduled for the Saturday after Thanksgiving, which is November 25th. Our ice hockey program had what turned out to be the most successful season that program has had since it started. As a varsity level program, started seven years ago. The team completed an undefeated season with a 17-0-3 record. Ended up tying for the league championship in the Mayflower League Southeast, had an identical record, but still that's the first time any one of our ice hockey teams has had a league championship of any kind. I think they also had the best run in tournament play that any one of our ice hockey teams has ever had, making it to the South Sectional semifinal round. So, team was under new leadership this year. DJ Watkins, who's one of our local police officers, had been an assistant coach for a couple of years. Jack Moran decided to step down at the end of the previous season, and DJ took over and did a great job. And I think that from my standpoint, where he did the greatest job was not on the ice, but off the ice. He had his team do quite a bit of community service work during the course of the season. They ran a drive to collect food for the food pantry, which they did at a couple of their ice hockey games, and then they went out and they helped to stock those shelves at the food pantry. They also organized a project where during one of the heavier winter storms that we had, the kids went out and they shoveled snow for some of our elderly population. And then they ran a fundraiser, which was to raise money for the two boys that were tragically lost, two ice hockey players from Falmouth High School that were tragically lost in an automobile accident. And they raised over $3,000 that they presented to that family, who had put together a fund for those two boys. So we always like to see our student athletes do things outside of the classroom, outside of the playing arena, to get involved in community, and I think that this particular group was stellar in that category. I didn't put it on your sheet, but I would be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit about our swim program. Jim Pignato has built and runs just a fabulous program, and they had just an incredible year.
Sure.
Both teams won the dual meet. They were dual meet champs for the Bay Colony Conference. They were also league meet champs, winning the league meet. That's both the boys and girls programs. Both teams were 6-6-0 in league dual meet play. Both teams won the Cape and Islands Relay Carnival. Both teams won the Bay Colony Relay Carnival. The only loss on either one of the records was the girls program losing a dual meet to Duxbury, and Duxbury ended up as the eventual state champions. So speaks very well to the caliber of the program, not only the kids in it, but the people that are running it. Jim Pignato was recognized by the Bay Colony as the Coach of the Year for both girls swimming and boys swimming. He was also recognized by the Eastern Mass Coaches Association as the Coach of the Year for the girls program. So honors that are well-deserved for somebody that puts a lot of time in and energy into a program, works very hard with it. And year in and year out, if you look at the swim programs, you're going to see that their GPA is up there on top or near the top with all of the other programs. Couple of new programs came into play this year. We started a cross-country team in the fall. We had known for a couple years that there were people that would like to see that, so we put it into play. Gary and Phil Allen, who both local boys here who work with the running club here, manned that as volunteer coaches and did a terrific job. We had 21 student athletes that participated in that at a club level. They did very well. They competed against some of the varsity level teams in the Cape and Islands League and actually managed to win one of their meets. So the program had rave reviews from everybody that participated in the parent group, and we think that those numbers are going to continue to grow. Our plan is to push that to a varsity level for this fall. We actually think we'll be participating cross country at 2 levels, both varsity and JV, for the fall of 2017. This spring, it got on the table kind of last minute. Margaret Bento, parent, came to see me, very passionate about tennis. She had a son that played. She and Sarah Menakis, who was a tennis pro at Sankaty Golf Club, came, spoke to me about trying to put a program together. We pushed things as hard as we could, and we were able to get a program together to compete at a club level. We had 34 participants in that program, and the kids all had a great time. I can't say enough good things about Sarah and also about Michaela Seitz, who's one of our PE teachers here, who worked as one of the coaches with that program. They did a great job, kept the kids interested, even when you think in terms of the weather that we had this spring when that program started off. Being down on those tennis courts was not an easy thing. So right now our plan is to keep that at a club level for next spring, see if we can build the numbers, build the strength of that program a little bit, and then hopefully in 2019 we will take that program to a varsity level where we compete. There'd be a separate boys team, separate girls team. That's the way that the tennis programs compete. A couple of notes just from a standpoint of athletics facilities and some improvements. Worked with Diane from facilities to put new scoreboards both in the high school gym and then down on the football field. The football field was antique. That scoreboard was on its last legs, and that was much needed. The new LED board down there certainly shows up much better, and it's set up so that it has the capability to do not only football games but also lacrosse games and show penalty times In the gym, we moved the 2 scoreboards to the ends of the gym where they're more appropriate with the shot clocks in those locations. So much better from a functional standpoint in those gyms. That's really the nuts and bolts of what went on in the athletic world this year, and I'm open to any questions or any comments that you may have.
This was a very full year. Zona, do you have any questions or comments? I'll start with you and go down the line.
I stepped out for just a quick moment, but did anyone bring up track? Did you mention anything about track and?
Cross country.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Cross country. Track has been brought up.
Okay.
Track right now would be a challenge just because we really don't have the facilities for track. And anytime we venture into any new sport of any kind, and we did this with both the programs that we put on board, we take a good hard look as to whether or not that's going to hurt or damage any of the existing programs that we have. Track, I think, is one that might be damaging to some of the programs that we already have. And I should mention with the cross-country team and with the tennis team, the majority of those athletes that competed on those programs or participated in those programs were new to our athletic enrollment. They did not get pulled from another roster or from another team. So the 21-4, between the 21 and the 34, we added roughly about 50 some odd kids to our athletic enrollment. Down the road, if the facilities were ever to change, and we could or felt we could provide a track team, we'd certainly take a look at it.
I think the athletic program was a success this year. I think not only in terms of victories, but in terms of what we're talking about with the hockey team. I mean, that type of stuff is part of being a team. I think it was particularly sweet to hammer the venue, and I hope we do it again this year and go for 50.
Could you just make mention of your registration process so any of our viewers know that they should be registering for fall sports?
Sure. We are, right now we're in the process of trying to get everybody registered for fall sports, and all of our actual registration is done online at familyid.com. We put that system in play a few years ago, and that has been very helpful in streamlining being able to get our registrations completed. We're trying to get the online portion of that registration done now, and then we will pursue the other things, which are the participation fees and the doctor's physical forms. But once we have the online registration part done, it gives us a good read as to just exactly how many are going to be participating. Right now, to date, we have just a little over 160 kids that have registered for fall sports. Our expectations are that when we actually hit the field of play in the fall, we'll have about 400 kids that will be participating in fall sports.
And do you feel like we're reaching our ELL students and they're able to, go through the registration process, which is pretty lengthy?
I think that we are reaching them. Mm-hmm. I think that, and we have, work to try and help them through the registration process. Mm-hmm. I think it is an area where we need some improvement. I think, and I've talked to Mr. Kozort about this I think that some outreach on our part to those communities to kind of give them a better idea of what we do offer from an athletic standpoint. I think there's some cultural differences there from a standpoint of the way their kids are raised, and they're not as driven towards extracurricular activities in athletics. And I think maybe if we could do something to better educate them or open the doors so they could see what is provided for them, it might be helpful in getting more of them involved with our athletic programs.
Thank you.
No, I think that's a good point, because I think sports, we know, can bring students together, and there's a real camaraderie and family. So I would support fully in being able to reach out to our ELL population to do.
And can I just interrupt for a quick second? I feel like our incoming, 6th graders into the middle school, some of those students who I've worked with coaching soccer, aren't really familiar with the program yet and need a little more guidance?
Well, I think one of the things in trying to expand the middle school programs more and get more middle school kids involved in our school program will help to kind of bridge that gap. There also seems to be, we're seeing more and more from a standpoint of the male population in those, in that group coming into our sports programs than we are with the female. And again, I think that is more of a cultural difference than anything else, where as to what those kids are expected to do with their after-school time. And again, I think that we're going to take a look at it this summer and see if there's some ways that we can put some people on board that maybe can help us from a standpoint of reaching out to that community a little bit better.
That's great. Thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt, Pauline.
No, that's fine. I would just like to also take the time to shout out to our grounds crew. I had an opportunity or a reason to be at the superintendent's office on a Saturday morning at 7 a.m. Where were you?
Upstairs.
You probably were. And out on the field were 2 or 3 of our grounds guys prepping the field. I assume we had a home meet or a home game. And it isn't just that one morning. I know from the years I worked at the school, and it has continued. They take such pride in our fields. I think we have some of the best fields in the Cape and Islands, and I just want to take this time to give a shout out to them because they do a remarkable job Monday through Friday, weekends, and after hours. So.
I would definitely echo what you're saying. I think, Joe Perry obviously heads up the ground crew. Chuck Deuce actually does a lot of the work, the physical work with the different playing fields, and Chuck takes great pride in those fields and what he does with those fields. And our kids know it when they travel off to other venues and stuff. They see that we're very fortunate from a standpoint of what we do have for fields and what we do have for people that maintain and take care of those fields. So recognition is definitely well deserved for each and every one of those guys.
Come and do my yard? That'd be lovely.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry.
Could I just add one?
Yes.
I just wanted to bring to everybody's attention the statistic that I like the most, which is 371 of our 540 high schoolers participate in at least one sport. 371 out of 540. I think that speaks well of the programs, the breadth of the programs that we offer to reach out in some way to almost everybody. It's a far cry from the old days when there was football, basketball, baseball.
And cheerleading, right?
Maybe in the old days, I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there was. I got kicked
There
off.
were. You got kicked off.
Because I forgot the names of the players in the middle of that cheer you do. And they said, you know what, you're really not cut out for this. So, something I failed at,
But learn from it.
but learned from.
And I would also like to another shout out, maybe that's my role tonight, is the ability that our school district has had for years of including students with different abilities, differently abled students. And it has always been heartwarming when I've gone to a game or swim meet over the years and watched all students participating. And I love the fact that we are fully inclusive to our differently abled population.
Well, I think that our coaches try to do everything they can to make sure that every kid that's involved is included in some fashion. And since you mentioned the swim program, I'll give Jim Pignato another little pat on the back because that program has really grown in numbers. And this year, the last 2 years, he's handled over 60 kids in that program. And what he's done is he's basically put on an extra session of practice where he's taking kids that really, a lot of them haven't even been in the pool before and teaching them how to swim, and by the time he's done with them, a lot of them are competing by the time they get a couple years into the program and into the varsity level. So, and obviously he's also done a great job with the Dolphins program to build a nice feeder system for his program. So, I mean, our philosophy is the more kids that we can get involved in extracurricular activities after school, obviously the better off that they are and that we all are. So, It was great to see the 2 programs come on board. I think both those programs will stick, and I think both those programs will grow in numbers and just increase that population of kids that are participating.
I'm sorry.
I just have one more question just for what you said. Have we grown the diversity on that team? Do you know? And I'm specifically picking out swimming just because I think a lot of our other sports we're pretty rich in diversity, but I think for swimming for a long time we weren't, and I'm just wondering where we are this year.
The short answer would be no. I think that program draws a certain portion of the population, and there are a few more that are participating in that program, I would say predominantly on the male side. But again, that's someplace where, maybe with a little bit of outreach, we can start reaching those other portions of the population and get more and more people involved.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to recognize my favorite sheet annually in your report is the academics and the academic accomplishments. And I think that's it's heartwarming, and it's heartwarming in the face of how much time our students have to commit to in traveling. And I think it was the last meeting we mentioned the unfortunate poor Wi-Fi connection sometimes on some of the boats, and it may be the 60 to 100 students who are on it trying to access the internet so that they can do their work. I know we spoke with Karen about, if there is some way we can work with the ferry to help support an improvement in that, because we rely on that internet connection so much for our student athletes to be able to complete their assignments on time. But in spite of all of that, or despite that, these numbers are very impressive, and I would like to commend our students and our student athletes and their coaches for placing such an emphasis on academic responsibility as part of being an athlete.
That's good, and we're actually seeing with our coaches and with a lot of our programs, they look forward to that competition on the academic side as well as on the athletic side. And last night we had our Girls Lacrosse Awards ceremony, and at that ceremony they had a total of 36 players on the team. We handed out 28 academic awards at that ceremony. They won the best GPA for the spring sports, and there's a general, there's a general excitement from the standpoint of those teams when they get that award. That is something that they do look forward to competing with. Just to touch base for a minute, we mentioned the steamship and the High Line and the internet service on those. We have talked with those boat lines about improving that service, and boat lines have said that they're working towards making those things better. Steamship's working on some other things right now.
Just a few. And then my last thank you would be, again, to publicly recognize both the Steamship and the High Line for their generosity of support of our student athletes. The dynamics of this athletic program would not be able to exist if it weren't for their generosity and support.
No, and I think I think a lot of people don't realize just how big a ticket that is, because we're basically getting round-trip tickets not only for our student athletes going off island, but for any of the visiting teams coming this way. And if you were to take that figure and you were to put all those fares into what is a full-price ticket, the figure is staggering. It's up in the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. So they are great to us, and they really do serve our needs very, very well.
And please let them know on behalf of the school committee that we appreciate that. And I don't know that, I'm sure that we do, but it would be lovely to send some recognition from us on behalf of the school committee for that.
Secretary. Don't forget to ask
But Logan's
for our
raising her
stationery.
hand.
We did send a thank you note.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Logan.
Thank you so much, Logan.
Thank you.
You're not off the hook, though. I'm going to find a note that you have to send.
If I could have the last word.
Yes, you may.
Melissa, I just, Chris is up here talking about coaches and everybody else, and I'm not sure that a lot of people understand, first of all, how difficult the athletic director's job is, and how much of a high profile it is, because everybody in the community thinks they could do the job as well or better.
Kind of like yours.
Yeah, well, yeah. So, and I think I just want people to realize that being an athletic director on an island compounds the job tenfold, because you're thinking about ferry schedules that other people aren't thinking about. You're thinking about what happens if the kids can't get back on the ferry. How am I going to put them up overnight? Or how do I get the refs back? Or what do I do with a team that's stuck on this side? And then just watching the weather and the ferry schedules all day long. So, and not only do we have Chris doing so much, but Beth Morey does an awful lot of work behind the scenes, getting pizza, driving the refs to the airport or to the ferry. So I would like to recognize both of them for their work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you,
My
Chris.
honey-do list is very long.
And please thank Travis for us also.
Yes,
I will.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you again. Okay, before we go on to the next presentation of our ELL PAC update, and I invite Jeremiah in, I would like to recognize that Kelly Cooney, our incoming ELL director, is here this evening, and we just want to welcome you, Kelly. Thank you for making it here, and thank you for being present for this update. We welcome, we're looking forward to the time when you're up here talking with us.
Delighted to be here.
Thank you. Jeremiah, would you like us to move to the front
You have all
row?
the slides in front of you. If you
Okay.
want to stay, it's up to you.
Perfect, thank you. We'll stay put then.
Thank you for having me tonight for my end-of-year report. The theme this year is change. We certainly saw it in the election process in the fall. One of the biggest changes affecting English learners is the signing into law of the Every Student Succeeds Act by President Obama in December of 16, which changed our terms, right? So they're no longer English language learners, they're English learners. And they're no longer FLEPs for former limited English proficient students, they're FELs or former English learners now. So when you get maddened by all those acronyms, just remember, this is it until we get a new federal law, okay? I have to start tonight by recognizing the staff, and I see many of them here tonight. Thank you for your support. But I want to start by mentioning that we suffered a great loss in our department this year with the passing of Henry O'Rourke in February. He came to our district from Holyoke. He found a great place to be that suited his talents. He really put the interest of his students first, and he worked every day to provide them with opportunities. He always remarked to me how different the population here was in Holyoke, because he really felt that our students had a real opportunity to do something with their lives, and he worked every day for that. So I want to make sure that I mention Hank. The next people I have to thank are our two community outreach people. Patricia Harding is not here, but Eileen Taveras is here. Would you please stand, Eileen? Eileen is our district interpreter and translator. Patricia and Eileen are our first line of encounter with our immigrant families. They represent the district in a very culturally proficient manner. They do a lot more besides their job description as well. Mm-hmm. So I just want to make sure to publicly thank them very much for everything that they do. Present with us in the staff tonight, we have, please stand, Kate Barbet from the elementary school, Janet Giles from the elementary school, Nicole Ridge from the elementary school, Vessi Nacheva from the elementary school, Tina Fournier from the elementary school, and Catherine Kennedy Norton from Cyrus Pierce. Thank you all for everything that you do every day for our kids. And especially good luck to Kate. We'll be leaving the district this year, as well as Shawnee Webster from the high school. So good luck to both of them in their future endeavors, and thank you for all your work here on Nantucket.
I know Mr. Kozor likes to start with enrollment, so I'll start with enrollment here. And I do want to point out, however, this is not official October 1st data. This is my gleaning of data from our Aspen Student Information System. The data is certified October 1st next year. But I think you can see the progression right there that that is continually, our population is continually growing. So some of these numbers are deceiving because we lost a lot of kids this year too. There was a lot more turnover in the past this year. So for instance, in the high school, we actually gained 22 English learners, but lost 14 here for a net gain of 8. So that's just one example of how the population is in flux at all 3 schools. Here it is graphically, and again, please note that this is a June 1st unofficial data point, not the official October 1st SIMS data that is reported to the state. Here's the enrollment broken down by grade. You can see, obviously, we have our largest enrollment at the elementary school, where we always have. High school continues to grow steadily, and the middle school has made a lot of growth in terms of population as well. And here's the one that I think is really telling for Nantucket Public Schools: the percentage of English learners as part of the total enrollment of the school in the district. You see that the state average from last fall in October is 9.5% English learners. We are well above that at all 3 schools, significantly above at the elementary school. More than double. And as a district, we are nearly double the average of the state English learner population. Here it is again. You can see, I think we've made our biggest gain in population since the year of 2013 and 2014, when the population of our EL students nearly doubled. But I think the trend will continue. And here's what their home languages look like. We are almost 87% Spanish speaking. We do have a nascent Nepali population. More Portuguese speakers as well as in past years. But here's something that I think is telling, and I'd like to provide this slide as well in my reports, is that this graph represents the home languages of all Nantucket Public School students. And this includes EL students, but it also includes students who are already bilingual. They may have not needed English language services, or they may have exited our program. There are 209 bilingual students who are not part of our program in the district. That is 491 students in this district speak another language other than English. That's remarkable. Here it is broken down by all students and then by English learners. You see, obviously, our greatest population is Spanish, followed by Portuguese, and then Nepali, Lithuanian, and Bulgarian. I wanted to present the access scores, but before that I wanted to give you a short background in the history of access. Massachusetts joined the WIDA consortium in 2012. In 2007, WIDA set their original standards for the proficiency levels of the results of the access administration. So when the standards were introduced for the Common Core standards, the Next Generation Science standards, and then WIDA amplified their standards in 2012. The WIDA board met this summer to conduct studies about how they thought the proficiency levels matched what the actual needs of English learners were in academic situations. So we took our first access for 2.0 3 years ago. In January of 2015, a year and a half ago, was the first time that we took it online. So that was new for us. We're way ahead of many districts in the Commonwealth who still take a paper and pencil test, and I want to make sure to thank Karen McGonigal and her tech staff for all the great work they did, especially her and Joanne Johnson, as well as the tech staff in each individual building for their troubleshooting and hand-holding during the access test.
So we do have new cut scores this year. Here's just a little brief from WIDA. The assessment has not changed itself. It's just the scoring and the cut scores for the proficiency levels have changed. Here's a cute little graphic that WIDA provides showing the demands of language increasing. That's their slide. But here's a comparison taking grade 8 scores from the entire country as to where the changes are most evident. And you can see at the top of the scale is the most different than before. Students, say, who were normally or perhaps a low level 4 student are now intermediate almost in level 3. The changes have affected most high school students who are encountering higher demands on their academic performance, as well as more complex language. So the demands are greater on those older kids at the higher ends of the proficiency scale. We always like to compare our current results with prior results to see how students are progressing. This year, WIDA is discouraging us from doing that because, as you saw, there are 2 separate scales for their proficiency scores. Mass Department of Education is telling us that by the end of the summer, they will report to us on progress of students. And there will also be some really good data to measure our 2017 scores with past access scores that were scored on that different scale. So I'm sure Kelly can help you through that in her presentation in the fall. There are lots of reasons that the scores are different. Certainly, one thing to know about language learning is that receptive skills always precede productive skills. So that's why you can probably understand a little foreign language when you can't speak it. In this administration, the speaking scores were affected more than any other domain, followed by writing and reading. Listening was not terribly affected this year. So one of our great strengths I see is our bilingualism, and I think that that's something that we can build on. The Mass Department of Ed has just recognized at Matsol's insistence a seal of bilingualism. I think that's something that we would love to work toward here at Nantucket High School. But it's really crucial, I think the most important thing is that students are receiving the support that they need. And that's why I have been so confident in WIDA from the beginning, is that WIDA is kind of like a roadmap that shows teachers how they can support students at different proficiency levels. And as I said, these scores in 2017 are a reset. They're our new baseline to measure growth going forward.
Jeremiah, may I ask you a quick question?
Please.
Just on that? Because I had written down the question about how these tests inform instruction. So how do the results come on an individual student that help you create that roadmap?
So the report will come that a student scores in each domain, listening, speaking, reading, and writing. There's also an oral score and a literacy score. And what that will do is help the teachers identify where the students' strengths are in areas of need, so that they can tailor their instruction to meet those weaker areas and really build on the strengths that they have in the strong areas.
Excellent.
This is one place where I think our ELL staff is doing a fantastic job now in their 4th year with the WIDA standards. This is an area that I would like to see content and mainstream teachers improve on, and I think they will as they become more and more familiar with them, is how to differentiate for English learners in the mainstream classroom. So we get those access reports, we see various domain scores, and that helps the teachers identify those students' areas of need.
Great. Thank you so much.
I just included some links. I know that we've got some inquiring minds here on the committee, so you can go and read up all about it. WIDA's got an enormous amount of information available to help you understand the changes. So here we are by school and by grade, showing the makeup of our students. These are the results of this year's administration. You can see at the elementary school we get a lot of low beginners, especially at kindergarten, predominantly level 1 students.
And I think it shows how great a job our elementary school staff is doing, that the students make a natural progression from low proficiency to higher levels and then exit our program within the elementary school. So, you know, great thanks to Mrs. Kubish and the elementary school staff for the work that they're doing, and as well to the content teachers at the elementary school. The last year that I taught the retail classes, I was really struck by the willingness of elementary teachers more than any group to implement these strategies, perhaps because it's an easier ask at that level, but I found that this year specifically, elementary teachers did a great job implementing WIDA strategies and some of those sheltering techniques that help our kids, as you say, you know, meet them where they are and help meet those needs. At the middle school, again, we see students coming in at very low proficiency levels in 6th and 7th grade. I love to see that bump at the 8th grade level of kids at higher proficiency levels, and thank you, Mrs. Norton, for your hard work there. But it does show us how many kids come to us in 6th grade with little or no English at all.
So those would be then, you're able to differentiate, or can you just tell that these are incoming new students, or are they students, how many are carrying over from 5th grade into 6th, and how many are new enrollees into the program?
The teachers have that information at the tip of their fingertips.
Yeah.
I can't really
I'm not asking you for those numbers, I'm just wondering how we can tell by looking at the data, or you can just tell.
So, I mean, I see 5 students who are a level 1 here.
Yeah.
Right, but that's typically where we get our newcomers. If they're coming into grade 6 through the elementary school, we would hope and imagine that they would be at higher levels of proficiency by the time they left 5th grade.
So it could be, if I'm looking at grade 5, there's maybe 2 or 3, and then we're having an addition of maybe 3 or 4 students coming in 6th grade.
Right.
Okay, I thank you.
At the high school, it's even more stark. If you look at grade 9, there is no one who is an English learner above a proficiency level 3. Same thing at grade 10. There are very few students at the upper levels of proficiency, 4 and beyond. And even as far as grade 12, look at the probably 7 or 8 students who are a low proficiency level 2, and many of them graduated this year. So that speaks to the work that our ELL staff and the content teachers are doing to help them succeed. By school, here it is again. Predominantly at the elementary school, you see students in levels 3 and 4, so they're making good progress down there. At NHS, again, you see predominantly beginner students. And here it is for the whole district. So out of our 280 students, we have about 91 who are level 3s, sort of right in the middle there. And if you, I did the totals on this, there are 186 out of our 282 learners, English learners, who are a level 3 or below in the district. So that's 66% of all English language learners in the district are low-level students. That's the challenge for content teachers specifically. Our Title III allotment grew again this year. We were over $40,000 from the federal government for support of English learners. Again, we used some of those funds for Hispanic community outreach. We reduced our number of after-school tutors this year to 2. There were 2 sections at the elementary school serving 18 students. We did that in order to increase our summer school tutoring. And I'm very pleased to announce that there is a high school section of English learners at summer school. I was thinking that perhaps we would call that the Tim Lepre School for English learners, satisfying your long desire to have a summer program at the high school. Mrs. Butler?
How many tutors for summer school?
5. So we went from 3 after-school tutors and 4 summer tutors to 2 after-school and 5 summer. The other thing that we are going to do with our Title III funds, there's an additional summer grant, the 186 grant, that we're going to use to support our Summer Boost program for those incoming very young students.
Mr. Horton told me there are 48 non-English speakers eligible for Summer Boost this year. So with our additional Title III summer grant funds, we can create another section of Summer Boost for those learners. So that's spectacular. I know this is titled the PAC update. Unfortunately, Maria Partida is in Boston tonight and she cannot be with us, but I want to thank her. She's the leading voice among our immigrant parents. She's a tireless advocate for our kids. She organized this whole United States Hispanic Leadership Institute program at the high school this year, where the students met with community leaders such as the Sheriff Perlman, Chief Pittman from the police department, the fire chief, Mr. Kozort met with them. He brought the entire administrative team one day to speak with them. I met with them on another day to talk about how we work the English learners into the school system. And they took a trip in February, I believe it was about 15 or 16 of them. They fundraised, and then they took a trip to a national conference in Chicago, where I think their eyes were really open to the possibility of student leadership from within the Hispanic community. So that was a great experience for those kids, and I'm really looking to see results back here in our halls.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I wanted to put here is family support, because we don't often get great attendance at our parent advisory meetings. But I just wanted to give you a little anecdote. I ran into a Salvadoran friend of mine. He's a house painter. And he's the father of 4 students who have now graduated from Nantucket High School since they arrived here in 2009. I was fortunate to teach all of them at one point. The youngest one, who just graduated last week, was not an English learner by the time she came to my 6th grade homeroom. But I asked him why I didn't see him at graduation. And he told me he had to work. And I think that really speaks to the cultural difference between our immigrant families and our more mainstream families here on Nantucket. I think that a very important golfer, Phil Mickelson, just missed playing in the United States Open last week so that he could attend his daughter's high school graduation. So I think that's just something to keep in mind when we think that we don't have a lot of parent support within the immigrant community for their academic needs. I think that's a misunderstanding. I think those parents work tirelessly to support those kids. It just may not be as visible to us on this side as it is for other student populations.
Thank you for sharing that.
So in the past 3 years, I just wanted to show what we've been working on during my time as Director of English Learner Services. One of the great challenges when I came in 2014 was scheduling. And with our increased staff, we have now fully complied with Department of Ed mandates in terms of service delivery and how these kids are included in every activity within the school. The WIDA standards and assessment, I gave you a brief history of that. We're really doing well in terms of the English learner staff. Again, this is an area of improvement for the mainstream and the content staff. But I think now with our familiarity with the access test, how to interpret those results, and how to differentiate for those students according to their proficiency levels, these are things that people learned in the Sheltered English Immersion course, the retail course. So I'm confident now that our district is in a much better place going forward with the WIDA standards. The last thing that we did this year was we bought a software program called Elevation, which is aimed at housing all English learner data in one place. It's been somewhat slow to get started, and I'm hopeful that that is just sort of a growing pains experience in our year 1. But one of the selling points that convinced Mr. Kozart, I know specifically, to go with this program was that next year we're adding a platform called Strategies that will allow English learner teachers to share just what you were talking about, Melissa, those different strategies and techniques that are applicable to English learners at various proficiency levels. So I'm hopeful that going forward now, that we're more familiar with the elevation, that the data is loaded and managed easier, that it will be more widely disseminated by the staff and more accessible by the mainstream staff. They will all have a login to elevation next year, so they'll all be able to generate specific strategies for meeting the needs of English learners at various proficiency levels.
That's great.
So at graduation last week, Mr. Kozort proudly recognized that 18 of our students were both English learners and the first in their family to graduate from high school. Thank you for mentioning that. I think that the reaction from the staff and the audience was special. Every person in the staff who was there stood and applauded, and there was sustained applause from the community members. I just think that that's a tremendous accomplishment, especially for those families. The other thing that I'd like to point out in the class of 2017 is that 20 of those graduates were born in another country. I think this is a watershed year for Nantucket Public Schools in that regard.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
Just on that specific slide? Do you know how many of those students applied to college? Do you have that number?
I don't have that number, sorry, but I don't imagine it was all of them.
Do you get a feel? Well, I'd love to, maybe can I follow up with you? I'd love to know what that percentage is.
Sure.
I think John can provide that to the guidance office for us.
Okay.
That'd be great. Thank you.
I would say probably fewer than half, but I don't know if that's official. So looking ahead to next year's graduating class, again, 32 students who will be bilingual and 15 born outside the United States. And for the long view, I thought I'd show you what the kindergarten and first grade classes look like. Our current grade 1 class, 48 students speak a language other than English. That's almost 40% of that class. So in addition to the 26 English learners, there are 22 bilinguals. Pretty exciting. And again, even if you go further back to the kindergarten class, 39 of those students have a home language other than English. So this will bring me to the other change is the change in our staff. I mentioned we're losing Kate, we're losing Shawnee Webster. We were very fortunate at the high school when we lost Mr. O'Rourke to gain Devin Durand, who sort of in a stroke of serendipity arrived on the island just around the same time that we lost Hank. He came to us with extensive experience teaching English as a second language in South America and in an academy in Minnesota. So he's passed his MTEL exams and he's well on the way to doing a great job here at the high school. He had a difficult ask when he stepped into Hank's shoes back in February, and he came through with flying colors, so I wanted to make sure to recognize Devin. You can see how the teachers will be split between the elementary and the intermediate schools next year, although Mrs. Natcheva may do some straddling back and forth, depending on the scheduling when we get there. And we're still searching for another English learner teacher at the high school. So if you have any friends out there who need a job teaching English, please encourage them to apply. And then, of course, the greatest change, in my opinion, is that I'm handing the reins to Kelly Cooney. Kelly comes to us with extensive experience at Boston Public School, Fall River School District. She's been at Southbridge School, where they're in turnaround recently. She's got a lot of experience working with MATSOL and the Department of Education, specifically on the curriculum project, which is going to be a big piece for our English learner program going forward. I could not be happier and more confident in the direction of our program under her leadership. So I'm really optimistic about next year and beyond with Kelly. I just want to say thank you to the committee, those of you who I knew personally before you came on the committee, and those of you who I know through the committee. So thank you for your support during my time as English Learner Director. And I really want to end with thanking Mr. Kozort, for recognizing the need for a Director of English Learner Services back in 2014, and for having the confidence in me to appoint me into the position, and for all the support and sort of a boost up as as I struggled through these past 3 years. So thank you, and thank you to the committee.
Thank you.
Any comments or
Questions?
questions?
I do have a comment, but I should have stopped you at the time and I didn't write it down.
I
And I
can
know
go back.
you were impressed with the statistic, and I was too. It was around when you had the English learners, you had the percentage of total student population, and you gave a number of how many students were bilingual.
491.
491 students in the district speak a language other than English. What is that, over 30%, right?
Yeah. Something else that you had right after that. I thought there were two. So 491 students in the district. I can catch up with you later on that.
All right, please do.
And I think you answered my other question, which is do the ELL teachers get time to work with other subject teachers to help them with individual students' needs? But I think you answered that for me with the elevation software, that'll be a new thing.
That will be a good tool to help them with that. Obviously, there's not enough time in the school day for any of us, you know, with all the demands on us, but that's something that will be facilitated by the elevation software program, certainly going forward. But I know that Kelly will make that a priority as well.
Great. And I'm sure Melissa's going to thank you, but I would just like to personally thank you as well for all of the work that you've done and the leadership you've done for our ELL community and our school district in general. You will be greatly missed.
Thank you, Pauline.
Any comments or questions on this?
I'd like to say the same thing. And I want to say that since coming on the committee, listening to your update and report of the ELL department has been such a delight, and it really makes me feel proud to be a part of the school system here in Nantucket. You've done a great job.
I just reiterate what everybody else has said, and I've come in with a number of ideas. But I'd really like to see students in the summer program, because I worry about the kids that are coming in the later grades and being able to really work them through. You put the hooks in me a couple times when I get a little too energetic, but congratulations.
Well, it's because you care, Tim. It's really because you care.
Congratulations,
Thank you.
and thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Before I thank you, I do have one question.
Oh, good.
Early on, you mentioned that as a percentage, we are outranking Massachusetts in terms of the percentage of EL students. Are there some sampling comparable districts? I'm just thinking from a policy perspective, if we were aware of some districts that were similar, just reaching out to those school committee members to understand if there are policy initiatives that we could be aware of. And
So I believe in my presentation back in October, I had a slide that showed the districts that we are usually compared to, our comps.
Yes.
Okay? So there is no district that is comparable to our situation.
I think that's so important for the community to hear again, that there is no district in Massachusetts that is comparable to our numbers. And to me, that is remarkable. I think Nantucket always prides itself on being unique, and this is a remarkable, unique quality that we have.
Well, there certainly are districts with many thousands of English learners. Let's not make
Yeah,
that
but
mistake.
percentage.
But as a percentage of the
Right.
total population in a small district, we are nearly double our closest comp.
Very remarkable. And then, before I pass it over to Mr. Cozart, I too would just very much like to thank you. I think I've been on the committee a short time, only since 2009, and being on the committee at a time of witnessing such remarkable growth, I think it was always a concern about how we were going to navigate this transition in leadership. And I really want to commend you for stepping up. I think the impact that you've had on student life is not comparable. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well,
I stole your thunder.
no, I hesitate to pile it on, Jeremiah.
You still have a few days left.
And yeah, I've still got to deal with you for the next week or two, and I'm tempted to say something like Mark Antony. I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him. But, I can't do it. You know, when we recognized that we needed a director leadership in our ELL program, it was a challenge for the district because we needed to have somebody at that time who not only understood the students but the culture of Nantucket, and that was particularly important as we had our first director. And I think coming from within has advantages and challenges. I think we recognize those and work through those. We couldn't have had a better person to take over as our first director.
Thank you.
And the job, you've made a huge difference in getting us to this point and setting up systems and handing it over for Kelly to make the next leap with the faculty and students. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Standing all.
Okay, moving along to committee discussion and votes to be taken. I'd like to start with the addition of the gift from Tuppence C. Harris Foundation for the amount of $5,000 in support of the Nantucket Community School Wee Whalers Preschool and the Early Childhood Education Program.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We'll move on to the vote to approve NHS Accidentals and Naturals Field Trip, April 5th through 8th, 2018. Thank you, Mrs. McKeever, wherever you are, for being so organized. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
And if I could just note, there was a change to, you may see
I
that
do
Dr.
see-
Bucky's name has been eliminated and my name has been
Did you
added.
cross that
I
out?
don't know if Dr. Bucky picked up on that.
I'm sure you'll have a lovely trip. Vote to approve the NHS China Club Field Trip, April 12th through 21st, 2018. Thank you again to Ye Ping for submitting this so early, to Beijing, China. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
A vote to approve a gift donation from Cape Cod 5 Charitable Foundation Trust to the NHS gift account for the Allied Health Program of $500.
Move approval.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
A vote to approve a gift donation from James Meehan and Patricia White to the NHS gift account for the Library New York Times abbreviated subscription.
Move approval.
I'm sorry, for $750. Thank you. A second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Vote to approve a gift donation from the Dorothy Egan Foundation to the NHS gift account, third and final installment for the Nursing and Allied Health and Program of $15,000.
Move approval.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And we'd like to thank very much the Dorothy Egan Foundation for the support of this wonderful program. I think it's been exceptionally successful. A vote to approve a gift donation from Andrew Hood to the NHS gift account for the wood shop in the amount of $1,500.
Move approval.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you again. It's a wonderful gift. A vote to approve the Congdon and McLaughlin scholarships for 2017, both for seniors and alumni, $7,000 and $6,000 respectively.
Move approval.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. A vote to amend policy EBB, first aid.
Move approval.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you to the policy committee for that. Amend the policy EBC, emergency plans.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. A motion to approve the June 6th, 2007 meeting minutes.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And a motion to approve transfers and invoices for the pay period ending June 4th, 2017, and the warrant for June 21st, 2017.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. On to the superintendent's report.
Okay, several quick items and a few additions to what you have down there. The Wellness Committee has met throughout the year. I met with them at the last two vertical meetings, and they continue to work on specifically the health components at the elementary and middle school. And so I would expect next year to make a presentation mid-year, not at the end as an update, so that they could talk to you about
Great.
what they have done. The graduation highlight, there were lots of highlights, and everybody has maybe a different highlight in their minds. John Bucky and Jason Bridges, our commencement speaker, did a wonderful job. John, I commend you for the organization of the entire graduation, and that is not a simple task. A highlight for me was Zona and Pauline being able to give out the diplomas to their children, and that's pretty special. And I don't think we've ever had a board chair receive as many hugs at graduation. And obviously, as the parent of a junior, you know a lot of those children. And then finally, as was noted by many people, the graduation of John Lucchini with the class, and I don't know whether to give John that credit or the class of 2017 for carrying him across the finish line. And we've acknowledged John's work, but we will miss you, John, and your steady hand at the high school, your commitment, your dedication, your work ethic, outstanding, and thank you.
Thank you, John.
Just to the handicapped accessibility that you had asked, we, and Diane may want to chip in here, we did in fact have the high school button worked on and fixed. Why it's not working today, I can't tell you, but they came out the Tuesday that we said that they would be coming out. The part came in on a Monday, and they worked on it on Tuesday. The middle school buttons have been fixed, as was noted by Mr. Martin, and the elementary school part is on its way. I think we had an ETA on that, or?
Friday. They'll be here Friday to fix that.
Right.
I'd also like to mention that the reason he can't get into the kindergarten entrance is because the door is programmed to be locked. It only opens for 15 minutes. That's a building decision. It's programmed to open 15 minutes in the morning to let the children in, and then it does not unlock for the rest of the time. So the handicap button will not work on that door.
And
The
I,
building commissioner called
yeah,
and had a long conversation with me because Mr. Martin visited him. So Steve enlightened me a little bit. He told me that any entrance door that is restricted in any way is not violating his civil rights because it's restricted to everyone. It's not just a handicapped person. It's locked for a reason, and it's a restricted entrance. He said that and if our doors are under 15-pound full, we don't even need openers. And there's some other parts of that law that goes with it, like you have to have a certain
amount of room behind to, if you were in a wheelchair, to be able to back up, and there's things like that. But obviously we do have openers and we want them to work, and I'm really working hard to get them all fixed. Mr. Gozer pointed out, Denise was here. They spent 5 hours on that door, and I checked it yesterday and it worked. I checked it Friday and it worked, and today it didn't work. So I apologize for that, but we are really working hard to get them fixed.
Well, thank you, Diane. I just want to note that I really appreciate your commitment, and I in no way share Mr. Martin's concerns that our staff is blatantly, or administration, ignoring this issue. I do believe that we are working on it and we will find a solution. So thank you for that.
And I would like to mention that just recently Natalie Gammons was selected as the Student Council representative to the school committee. Natalie had, I think, a training for lifeguard position tonight, so she wasn't with us, but I look forward to having Natalie join us.
I do as well.
And I'm sure she will do a great job. And then finally, on the horizon, we're in pretty good shape. I have to apologize that I neglected to put the summer math update on this list today, and so we will add that to the July 11th. Sorry, Michael, that was inadvertent. But we'll have him put that together with the rest of the math report for July.
May I make one comment, just perhaps a suggestion on the handicap accessibility? And in my role, in my position with the town, I've been working very closely with the Commission on Disability regarding accessibility for our visitors. And we've actually worked together on a couple of other town projects and invited them to come and just look with us at certain areas, both parking and accessibility. As I'm sure everyone knows, Nantucket as a community is a fairly imperfect place for our disabled friends and family members. So I just encourage you to, if you have not already, use Brenda and Mickey Rowland as a sounding board and advice. They are a wealth of knowledge. Brenda, I believe, works about 2 days a week, so it can be difficult to get in touch with her, but they have been perfectly lovely with me, and I think the more we can engage the commission in getting their stamp of approval on our projects, it will be to our benefit.
I actually did.
Great.
Mickey and Brenda came, and I met with them, and we walked the entire campus, I want to say about 6 months ago. We went over some future plans, where the handicap spaces would be, and I asked the new school how many spaces we had. They were very happy with what they saw, what we had going on.
Great.
And I told them if they had any concerns at all, please call me or address them.
Perfect.
We definitely.
Yeah. And I think in light of some of our recent concerns, just having that conversation ongoing with them is a great resource for us. So thank you again, Diane. And I did want to just address with the committee members that I know there's a doodle poll out for some information in trying to schedule our retreat. Jen has shared with me that through the month of July and August, she is not available to meet during the day, during the week. And so our options, I think, through the doodle poll are going to need to change a little bit to have availability on weekends and or evenings. I recognize that evenings can be a really difficult time, as can weekends. But in speaking with some of you individually, I do think it's important that we can find about 4 hours to spend together to have a retreat, to talk about some of our collective goals for the coming year. It would be great. So I'll work with Logan to perhaps put together a few other options. I'll work with Logan and Mike on that. And when you do receive it, I know it sounds like a funny name, but it is a really easy tool to use where you just check off when you are available and leave blank where you are not available. And that will very quickly tell Logan when we can schedule that retreat. So are there any blackout dates that we should be aware of going into weekends and evenings, July through August? Okay. Great. Well, thank you very much for that. Are there any work subcommittee or work group updates?
No comment, no committees. I do have one comment though.
Sure.
And I don't want to keep going back to this, but I do want it on record as a school committee member that I do not agree or support the comments that were made earlier. I am sorry, I apologize. I'm not apologizing for an individual, but I do apologize to you to have to have the concern that you're not doing your jobs as a school committee member. I am completely and utterly confident in the work that is done by our superintendent, our administration, and our teachers. And I just want to be on record to say that.
Thank you. Are there any other updates from committee members? May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Don't forget the ice cream social.
Yes, Thursday at noon. That's the school committee, just thank you and to the staff and recognition of the retirees.
Yes.
When is it?
Thursday at noon.
The day after tomorrow?
Yes.
Orientation.